Welcome, one and all, to the Hammer Territory podcast, wherever you are and wherever you are listening. It is fun to be with you as always. And Stephen, for the first time since early October, let's see, 4.5 months, nearly 5 months. It's been a while, 150 so days. We get to talk about actual Braves baseball. Now, it doesn't count, but you know what? It counts for content, and that's what we're here to discuss. Stephen Tolbert, always a pleasure to be with you here on this lovely Saturday afternoon to discuss the Braves spring training home opener. Stephen, how are you, sir?
Shawn, what's up, buddy? Yeah, baseball. Baseball's back. Yeah, early October, Braves got knocked out, obviously right at the beginning of the playoffs. So 5 months almost exactly of no baseball. And we're back. And it's fake baseball. It doesn't count, but it counts in our hearts. And that's all that matters today is I was obviously today's game wasn't televised, but I was following along on game day and there was real baseball. Chris Sale was pitching, Jared Kelenic was playing, Shawn Murphy was playing. Most of the Twins starters at least started the game. You know, they're regulars. The guys are going to be on the opening day roster for them. So, yeah, there was real baseball being played today, and it was glorious to have it back.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into all of those notable names that were on the diamond for the Braves in this episode, plus some fun updates when it comes to how you're going to be able to not only watch the Braves for spring training, but also when it comes to the regular season. So plenty of stuff to get to in this game. But we'll start where it matters most. And that, of course, was the return to the mound for the 2024 National League Cy Young winner, Chris Sale, who was on the mound for the Braves, went 2 innings, had 2 perfect innings, did a very good job on the mound. I believe that it was reported that he was up in the upper, 94 to 95 range when it came to his fastball. Sure, going against some regulars, they had a couple of good solid contacts, but it seems like Chris Sale was in the groove. When it comes to Chris Sale, listen, he's obviously not pitching for any type of role or anything like that. Chris Sale is one of the most in control, in terms of controlling the arsenal that he has. I don't know if there's a pitcher in baseball who has better understanding of his overall arsenal. For him, it's not about how fast he's throwing or anything like that. It's just finding that groove that once he finds it, we know he's among the best in the game, and he looked that part today.
Yeah, just a really solid start. You know, obviously they got a while to go. The spring training is about pitchers. Let's be honest. I mean, hitters could probably get ready in about 2-3 weeks if they had to, probably less than that, probably, a week and a half if they had to. We see guys on rehab assignments get ready quicker than that. So spring training is about pitchers. It's about building them, allowing them a long runway to get ready for the season. And so this is a really nice start for Chris. We saw last year, even in the regular season, he would pitch at 93, 94, 95, first inning, second inning, then he'd get in a spot. And then that's where you saw 98, 99. So yeah, he's at this point of his career, he's a master at dialing back when he knows he can, saving it for when he needs it. And so, it's about health. I mean, we said it all last year. Scott and Brad said it the day after the trade. Chris Sale has never been bad. He's never been bad. He's only ever been injured. If he's healthy, he's good. So it's about keeping him healthy. But yeah, he's going to be in full control of the spring. He's not going to overexert himself. He doesn't care about results, nor should he. He's not trying to win a job. He can just go out there, throw his pitches, get his work in, and get out of there. I'd kind of want to just wrap him in bubble wrap, to be honest, and go ahead and send him to Atlanta. I know they can't do that because he's got to build his arm up. But yeah, he looked good today. And against a bunch of regulars from Minnesota, like I said, it was a home game for them. So they had basically their starting lineup in there. And he went, 6 up, 6 down. So yeah, good start. And hopefully, 3 or 4 more of those and then off to Atlanta for opening day.
Absolutely. And I think it's also notable that Shawn Murphy caught the opening game of spring training. If you go back to last year, I know that they were fine basically for the second half of the season. But if you recall, Shawn Murphy and Chris Sale really didn't start working together when games counted until June and after that. So getting them more familiar with each other, I think, is an important thing to do, especially if Murphy is going to take on more of the catching role. He probably is going to catch the overwhelming majority of several of these pitchers' games. But I think that for Murphy, obviously, obviously we want to see him have a great spring at the plate, but I think this also shed a light on just how good Murphy not only is behind the plate in terms of the defensive metrics that you look for as a catcher, but also how good he can be for this pitching staff in terms of his mind as a catcher as well, which we talked about with AJ Perzinski about a month ago. But Stephen, I took that as a notable development as well, making sure that Sell and Shawn Murphy are on the same page, because I would be willing to bet that they could benefit from having each other in as good a position as possible.
Yeah, it's notable that he was, first game. I think that's on purpose. Obviously, he's going to catch a lot more. It's a good point. I mean, Shawn Murphy got hurt on opening day last year, and obviously Strider was pitching that game. So him and Sale did not, they didn't work together unless they worked in spring training a little bit. But they didn't pitch, and catch with each other in the regular season until like June. And obviously, after Murphy got back, he was on a split time with Darno, basically 50-50. So he didn't work with these guys a ton. And obviously, if they want him to catch 80% of the time, then he's going to have to work with everybody. There's not going to be any individual catchers. There's not going to be, he's going to be out there. And so it's big for him to work with everybody. It's big for him to be out there. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy too. He's another guy that, if he's healthy, I feel really confident about the season he's going to have. He just, that oblique injury on opening day last year was brutal. I think it wrecked his whole year. I don't think he ever felt comfortable again after that. So just if he can get into the season healthy and get into a groove, I like a bounce back year for Shawn Murphy. I think this is going to be a really big year for him. And it's a big year for the Braves to determine catcher. I mean, Drake Baldwin is sitting right there. Like there's a whole conversation. We're not going to do it today, but there's a whole conversation about Drake Baldwin, and he looks very, very ready. What are they going to do with Shawn Murphy long-term? Like, this is a big year for Murph, and for the organization to decide kind of which direction they're going to go. So, but yeah, obviously he was out there today, and I expect he's going to be out there a bunch this spring.
Yep. And then the other thing, speaking of Drake Baldwin, I believe that we saw him as well as Nacho Alvarez today. And before we get into the other big takeaway from today's game, those two as well, getting an early look in spring training. But, Stephen, you made a note of it. Nacho Alvarez, especially playing third base today, is definitely, I think, notable for multiple reasons. I'll let you break those down. But it was good to see basically the two most known hitting prospects for the Braves in the upper minors. They were going to get some action. They should get plenty of look this spring. Not necessarily to say that either one of them will break camp with the Braves, but at the very least get them as much exposure as possible to major league talent, to where they can get going at the minor league level at AAA, to where if their number is called during the season, they'll be ready to go.
Yeah, not a huge deal or anything, but it was notable to me that Nacho was in the game today in the lineup, but not at shortstop. He was at third, and they had Nick Allen at short. And I mean, we've heard that they are really high on Nick Allen's defense at shortstop. The bat is very much a question, but that he is a tremendous defensive shortstop. So, it could be more about Nick Allen than Nacho, but I am curious to see how much shortstop Nacho plays. There's plenty of opinion out there that he is not a long-term shortstop in the majors. We've had guys on this podcast talk about that. You can read, obviously this is prospect time. So if you got Baseball America, if you got Fangraphs, you got Prospectus, you got whatever you read, there's plenty of stuff out there on Nacho, and there's people who don't think he's a shortstop. So where he plays this spring is always going to be interesting to me. He's probably more of a second baseman. Third base is going to be tough if he doesn't develop some power. That's a tough position to play if you don't have a bunch of power. So, teams expect power out of the third baseman. So I think second's going to end up being his home. But yeah, where he plays is interesting. Nick Allen, how he plays, he's out of options. They're very high on him. I think he's going to make the team, actually. So, anytime any of these guys play, it's notable.
Absolutely. And let's talk about something that is notable as well. Not only, where he played, but also where he batted. And that, of course, is, the other major takeaway for me from this game is Jared Kelenic, who, it was discussed about who will be traveling to this first spring training game. You pointed out that since the Twins were going to be throwing a lot of right-handed pitchers, it made sense to have Jared Kelenic play. But the thing that stands out to me, Stephen, is that he had some really good at-bats out of that leadoff spot for Atlanta. When he is on, you see flashes of why he was such a highly touted prospect at one point, and it was good to see some really awesome at bats from him. Put 2 balls in play above 100 miles per hour off the bat, had that opposite field double. It was really good to see him kind of in a groove. It seems like that there's been some changes made to his swing, and he was locked in from the get-go.
All right, FT fam, collectors, there is a new, better way to buy, sell, trade, or display your sports cards. It's called Arena Club. And Kratz, I know you love it. The FT fam's got to go to arenaclub.com/foul to sign up and get a little extra something I'll tell you about in a moment. But buying in the past was clunky.
It wasn't easy. But now you don't have to worry about any of the shipping. And it's all it's easy right there. It's guaranteed authentic too for me, so I don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. Arena Club uses blockchain technology to deliver your card immediately. There's no shipping delays. You don't lose your card in transit. There's no, oh, my dog ate the card and now you don't have it, so here's a different one instead. So right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul. Use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase.
Yeah, you want to talk about a big year for somebody. I mean, the prospect shine is basically all but gone from Jared Kelenic. He's no longer the former top prospect. He's now, been in the league for about 1,500 plate appearances, has done very little with it. And at some point, the fact that you are a top 5 prospect in baseball doesn't matter anymore. It's just what you've done since you've been up. And this is a big year for him. He lost his job. There's no, he was going to be the starting left fielder. He wasn't good enough last year to hold it. Laureano ended up taking it from him. They were talking about he was potentially going to do it again this year. They signed Profar. He lost it again. But he's going to get to play with Acuna out for about a month. And what he does in that month is going to determine a lot for him because, they do have Brian De La Cruz, who's got major league experience. Both De La Cruz and Kelenic have minor league options. And that's important here because when Acuna comes back, somebody has to go down. And my guess is it's going to be how they play. Bowman was talking today about they're still deciding whether Kelenic and De La Cruz are going to platoon in right field or if it's just going to be Kelnic's job. Like you said, the Twins had a bunch of righties on the mound today, so Kelenic played over De La Cruz. But I'm very interested to see what they do with these two guys. Kelenic had a good couple of bats today, a couple of 100+ mile an hour line drives off the bat in his first 2 at bats, one for a double, one for an out. So very good start, but huge year for Jared Kelenic. I mean, I'm not saying it's make or break, but the Braves have 3 outfielders signed for a long time now, with Profar with 3 years and Michael and Acuna locked up. So what is the future for Jared Kelenic? They spent a lot of money to get him last year. They're still paying off, they're still paying David Fletcher $6 million this year to pay off. It's basically like a car loan. You're still paying off Jared Kelnic's purchase from last year. What are they going to do with him? It's a big question. And a lot of it's going to be how he plays. He's going to get about a month to try out and maybe try out for other teams. We'll see what happens, but big year for Kelenic. And it was a good start today. A couple of line drives. Obviously it wasn't on video, but, we'll see what his swing looks like. Some people have said his swing has gotten shorter. We'll see. He strikes out too much, so that would be big for him. But, yeah, big year for Jared Kelenic.
And that opposite field double, there was a video out there of, I believe that he was, I believe that was his at bat today where he went opposite field. And if you go to Baseball Savant, which is a wonderful site, I went there to look after, seeing that video. I went to see, what his spray chart looked like. And there is a clear, definitive difference between what his 2023 year looked like, especially when he had that 2-month stretch of where he was just very good, one of the best hitters in the AL in the first 2 months of 2023. He was there were several of his extra base hits that were to left field. Last year, I think there may have been 7 or 8 of all of his extra base hits that went to the opposite field. If he's driving the ball to the opposite field, that means that he is locked in terms of really focused on taking the ball across the whole field versus being a bit pool happy, which when he gets that way, he can start to strike out a bit. But you hit the nail on the head, Stephen, is that the best thing for Jared Kelenic to do for his future is to focus on the now. Because we've talked about it twice now. He's seen his starting opportunity taken away from him when they went and got Jorge Soler and when they also went and signed Jurickson Profar long term. The big thing for me for Jared Kelenic is make them without question know that you are the person to put out there in right field to start the season. Whatever happens after that happens, but at least force the situation. Make it to where you're doing everything that you can to take advantage of the first month and a half of this season, because we talk about whether or not this is a make or break season. It kind of is, because this is the only guaranteed chance that Jared Kelenic has to be able to show what he can do and that he can be a significant contributor to a team that's trying to win. He needs to take full advantage of it, and that starts with making the most of his spring training.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm interested in is, if you look at last year when Jared Kelenic took off, is when he started playing every day. At the first 2 months of the year, he was platooning with Duvall. Neither one of them had a good year. But when Acuna got hurt at the end of May and Jared Kelenic got put into the starting lineup and played every day, that's when he kind of took off. And so I think he does better when he gets everyday at bats. I mean, listen, a lot of players do better. But one, he's got to be able to hit lefties. If you're going to do that, you got to hit lefties. You can't just be a nothing against lefties. If you want them to put, if you want to be in there every day, you got to hit both sides. And, it's going to come down to how De La Cruz looks. But if they try to platoon him again with De La Cruz, I'm very curious to see how it goes. Because, even if you're on the strong side of the platoon, which he is because he's a left-hander, you're still not playing every day. And I think that affects him. And so I am curious to see if he just starts, if he's just the starting right fielder while Acuna's out, or if he is platooning. Yeah, it's a very interesting spring for Jared Kelenic. He's got to win the job first, of course. If De La Cruz just goes out and outplays him for the next 6 weeks, he might not even have a choice, but he's got to go win the job. And then once the season starts, if he's out there, he's got to do something with it, because this is a massive, massive year for him.
Well, and I told you before the show, I had a bit of a hot take, and it focuses on Kelenic. And my thought is this, is that with Kelenic, I know we're talking about, he needs to have a good spring to really take control of that outfield spot, to clearly be that everyday guy in right field. Well, in my opinion, the other thing, you mentioned it, he really took off in late May into June when he became an everyday player. He was playing every day, but what was the other key factor in that? He batted leadoff every day, and he took off from that leadoff position. I think that Jared Kelenic likes batting leadoff, and I think that he can be productive in that spot. What I'm getting to, the bit of a hot take that I have, is that I think that the best way for the Braves to open their season and stay consistent with this is Profar leading off, Riley batting second, Ozuna batting third, and then Olsen batting fourth. I think that that's your 4 best hitters stacked, and I think that makes sense as the top of the order. But when we talk about alternate leadoff hitting options, I feel that Kelenic, certainly with a good spring, could be in that conversation. I know many will point out to Michael Harris, who obviously has the more potent potential bat, being up there as the leadoff guy, and he had a great into the season. So yeah, that could make sense. Obviously, Ozzy Albies versus righties. But the point that I'm getting at is that last year, Jared Kelenic had a 8.5% walk rate out of the leadoff spot. Michael Harris, as we discussed, has never had more than a 5% rate, but it goes back to the strikeouts. Kelenic had a 28% strikeout rate at the top of the order. My key, though, is this, is that if those strikeouts show to where they are on the decline and he has a good spring, I am not against the idea of Kelenic at times leading off to start the season as well, because if he can cut down on his strikeouts and be locked in, I think that he could be a very, very productive top of the order hitter. And it's something that we've seen for a month or so far in a Braves uniform. It's not just a hypothetical. We've seen it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot about the OBP, right? I mean, if you want to bat at the top of the order, you got to get on base. And, there were times last year where he was striking out 5 or 6 times for every walk he took. And that's tough. That's a tough way to go through life, especially if you're going to bat at the top. So the play discipline's got to get better. Like you said, he did look better in June when he was the leadoff guy and he was playing every day. It's going to be interesting. If he's out there, I think Profar is still the better leadoff option, but we'll see what they do. It's going to be very interesting because I agree it's not Michael Harris. Michael's not a leadoff guy. Ozzy's not a leadoff guy. With Acuna out, it's probably Profar and Kelenic in some order. Profar, I think, I would still put him ahead. But yeah, where Kelenic bats, how he does, it's just a massive year. I mean, he's he's no longer the top prospect. He's no longer former. He's now just Jared Kelenic, been in the league like 3 or 4 years and has shown he's not a starter. And so he's got to do it this year. This is his year. And he's got a golden opportunity with Acuna definitely not coming back until May. We know Acuna's not coming back till May. Kelenic knows that. He's going to get, almost every day at bats unless they platoon him with De La Cruz. It's a huge year, and I hope he takes advantage of it.
Yeah, no matter how you want to label it, make, break, whatever it is, we officially have made the transition from Jared Kelenic, the player that's full of potential, to Jared Kelenic, the player that needs to take full opportunity to prove his worth as a major league player. But of course, the other big thing is we are wrapping up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast is the fact that, you know what? We were able to watch this game, and we're going to be able to watch tons of spring training games. And Steven, late last week, we finally got some information as to how that's going to roll over into the regular season. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm not trying to fluff this up for any other reason, but it's the straightforward truth. There has not been a time in over a decade that being able to access the Braves and do it with confidence, there's not been a time more than now that you could do that more with confidence with the news that was announced of how Braves country and an expanded area of Braves country will be able to access the Braves frequently this season.
Yeah, so we finally got some answers to some of the streaming questions that, we've been talking about this all off season. And after Diamond Sports Group left bankruptcy, there was obviously they renamed it from Bally to FanDuel. And so now FanDuel has, or Bally, form obviously FanDuel now, but it's still Diamond Sports Group. They have announced that you can stream on their app for, I think, $19.99 a month. And a big difference here is that when it was Bally, you had to have a cable subscription to even stream the Braves. Like you had to enter your cable provider. Then if your cable package included the channel already, then you were able to stream the Braves. But if it didn't, or you didn't have cable, then streaming is not an option. Now that it's FanDuel Sports Network, it seems like you don't have to have a cable subscription to stream on their website. So it's FanDuel Sports Network. It's an app. It's usually like if you have a smart TV, you can get it through Roku or there's different ways to get the actual app. You can get it on your phone, but you can go into the app. You can, create an account and you can stream the Braves without a cable subscription for $19.99 a month. And that's about what we thought price-wise. It's about $120 for the year. That's about what MLB.TV is. So we thought it would be around that range. But in addition to that, you can also access Braves games through Amazon. And if you go on, I actually did this today just to make sure I understood the process. So if you have Amazon Prime, you do have to have Amazon Prime. That is a prerequisite here. But I think most people I think have Amazon Prime. If you don't, it's a fantastic. Amazon Prime is amazing. It's not just a streaming service. It's, you get a bunch of free shipping and stuff like that. But you have to have an Amazon Prime account. You go into Amazon Prime. If you go to the sports section, they'll have a link that says FanDuel Sports Network. You click on that, it'll pop up your local teams, and you can stream the exact same price, $19.99 a month. You can stream all Braves games. And this is a big deal. People were confused because it's the exact same price as just going through FanDuel's app. But Amazon Prime is a leader in the streaming industry. Like they are one of the best in the world at streaming. And being able to use their distribution, being able to use their servers to watch Braves games is substantially better, dramatically better than having to go through, anybody that had to use the Bally app last year for any period of time knows that app sucks because it's a regional app. It's not great. And remember, just because it's FanDuel Sports now, it doesn't mean FanDuel is running this app. FanDuel just has the naming rights. It's still the same app. It's still the same behind the scenes people. It's still Diamond Sports Group running this kind of local app, and it's not great. And so if you have the choice between streaming via that crappy little app or streaming through Amazon, you always pick Amazon. And for the fact that it's the same price, it should be more expensive on Amazon because it's a much better platform. But because it's the same price, That's good news for Braves fans. That's very good news. And that's what I was waiting to see, is if Amazon was going to charge more to be on their platform. And they're not. It's the exact same price. It's $19.99 a month. I just went like an hour ago. I checked it on mine just to make sure I understood the whole thing correctly. So that's a big deal. And again, you don't need a cable subscription. You can have no cable at all. You can just have internet, and you can go through Amazon Prime, click the FanDuel button, $19.99 a month. I think you can buy it by the year as well. That part I didn't look into, but it's $19.99 a month, about $120 for the season, and you can stream all Braves games through Amazon, and that's massive. That's a massive deal, and this is in market. If you're in market now, if you're out of market, it doesn't change anything. MLB.TV is still available to you like it always has been. This is for people who live in market, in Atlanta, in Birmingham, anywhere in the Braves market who haven't had that option, who've been blacked out from streaming for years. Now we have streaming, and we have it through Amazon, which is, again, an industry leader in this stuff. Better servers, better support, better, customer support, all that stuff. It's a big deal. And so, yeah, that stuff got announced this week, and it's just more access to Braves game, more access to baseball, which baseball desperately needs. It's good news. It's really, we knew it was coming, but we finally got the details.
And again, it goes back to, it's not just the quantity of the games that you're going to be able to see. It's the quality of the platform. It's the reliability. It's the fact that you're, going to minimize the chances of, either, blackouts, obviously you're hopefully not going to have to deal with, but also the app just for some reason not working like it did several times over the past couple of years. So that's a big deal. And to your point, it's great to see that the price is reasonable as well. But as we look forward to the fact that, again, the great thing about baseball being back is that we get it nearly every day. And Ian Anderson is going to be making his spring training debut against the Rays on Sunday. I do think that Ian Anderson, I know that I've said this about several Braves, but I truly do mean it above some others I mentioned. Ian Anderson, I think, is going to be one of the more notable and intriguing names to watch this spring training. We talk about Jared Kelenic, a mega break season from him. You could say the same thing for Ian Anderson, because there's plenty of opportunity for him to potentially make some noise and return to the rotation for the first time, in basically 2 years. Steven, it's going to be good to see him on the mound. The big key, though, is to see, number one, that you're going to see the velocity that needs to be there. But for Ian Anderson, it's that control. Not everything's going to be answered tomorrow, obviously, but can he throw his pitches where he wants to and control the strike zone? That's going to be the big key for him this spring.
Yeah. Listen, it's always a perilous position to be in when you are out of options and you are not on, you have not guaranteed yourself a spot on the team, because that is a one-way ticket to being DFA'd at some point. And that's kind of where Ian is. The fact that he doesn't have options is probably going to help him get a job if it's anything close. But let's be honest, if Ian comes out and looks like crap for the next 3 or 4 weeks, they might just DFA him. I mean, this is it for him. This is kind of his last shot. It's not the same front office that drafted him. They don't have the ties to him that the previous, obviously he was the number 3 overall pick, but Alex didn't pick him. And, they'll cut him. If they don't like what they see, they'll cut him. And so we talked about Jared Kelenic being a make or break year. Well, it's even more so for Ian, because he's out of options. They can't send him into the minors. And once you don't have the ability to go to the minors, you're no longer considered depth. You can't be on the shuttle. So you got to be good enough to stay on the team. And it's going to be very see what he looks like. He needs his velocity. He throws that changeup so hard. He throws like an 88-mile-an-hour changeup that throwing a 92-mile-an-hour fastball just doesn't work. The difference is not big enough. He needs to be able to throw 95, 96, 97 like he did when he first came up and he was successful. Having that 10-mile-per-hour split in his fastball and his changeup is a big deal. I am curious to see if they try him in the bullpen. He's always been kind of a 2-pitch guy anyways. I'm curious to see if they might, he just might turn him into a long man, pitch kind of some low leverage long innings. But yeah, he's out of options. So obviously this is the beginnings. Tomorrow is the beginning of a very, very important spring training for Ian.
Yeah, and you just want to see one of these guys who, had initial success with the Braves or were highly touted prospects, had initial success, then got injured or couldn't stop getting injured and had initial success. You want to see one of them stick long term with the Braves. Dad burn it. We saw it more than a decade ago with Brandon Beachy as well as Chris Medlin. They had some good seasons, but it was short term. We've seen it with Mike Soroka. We've seen it with Kyle Wright. Ian Anderson just being able to regroup, come back, and make the most of his career. I don't necessarily know if he's ever, going to be on the track that he was, but at the very least, him being a reliable part of the Braves pitching staff, it's something that it just feels right. I wish him the best. I hope that he has a good spring training and he can be someone that can help answer the questions about either being a reliable part of the Braves bullpen or maybe shoring up the back end of the rotation as they look to manage the early season schedule. But going to be very interesting to see how he starts the season against the Rays. Make sure to check that out. Brad and Scott will be back tomorrow with the latest when it comes to spring training, as well as any other news that may pop up. Until next time, you can find myself at StatsSAC on Twitter/X, Stephen at @B_outliers. Foul Territory, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts, Hammer Territory and Foul Territory across all forms of social media. Until next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.